Hey guys, and welcome back to BattlefrontUpdates and a very exciting video because the week we've been waiting for is finally here. A Star Wars game launches this week and of course it's Star Wars Outlaws. So depending on when you're watching the video, the early access starts tomorrow and the full game releases 3 days after that. But Ubisoft were kind enough to hook me up with an early access code, so I've been able to play it for a couple of days and really wanted to make sure I played through the entire game and can give you guys my fair opinion on this game before maybe you make your decision to buy it. Quick note, I will not have any major story spoilers, reveals or anything like that in the video, but I will show some endgame gameplay upgrades and locations just because I need to explain my reasoning for some of the things I will be saying. So if you don't even want to see that, I would recommend you skipping to the end of the video and kind of my conclusion if you want to hear my final thoughts on the game. Other than that, let's get straight into my review of Star Wars Outlaws. First off, let's get the basics out of the way. I've only been playing for about 2.5 days and my goal was to try and complete the entire game, which I did, and it took me 16 hours, which is a bit lower than what they said, but keep in mind, I did not play the game the way it's intended, and definitely not the way I wanted to play it, because I skipped pretty much every single side mission. I mean, there's syndicate quests, intel, treasure caches, side quests, contracts. I mean, my quest log was filled with probably like 40 things to do, and those were only the things I picked up that I didn't do. So I just want to make clear that this is not the way the game is supposed to be played. I mean, every time I found a new character or found a little treasure hunt, I just kind of skipped it and moved on because I wanted to make sure that I could finish the game before I made this review. So yes, if you do rush the story, it took me about 16 hours, which is a couple of hours less than something like Jedi Survivor, but on the other hand, if you do all the side stuff that this game is meant to be, since it is an open world game, it will definitely take more time than Jedi Survivor did, if that makes sense. And honestly, it kind of bugs me that this is the way I play the game, because even though I really like the main story and especially the stuff towards the end, no spoilers, the syndicate quests and all of the relationships between the syndicates, the rebels, the empire, those were all the really interesting things, and I kind of just skipped that, which is a bit of a shame. But I really wanted to be clear about how long the main story takes and how the game is actually supposed to be played. I also played on PC with a mouse and keyboard this time. You guys might remember that during my preview event I also played on PC but with a controller instead. And I do have some initial thoughts I wanted to bring up there, as I do think the game is a little bit better with a controller for some reasons. Like the reason I went with mouse and keyboard to this time is because that's usually how I play games, especially shooters. And it was so much easier for me to shoot with a mouse and keyboard. I could go around basically one-tapping the stormtroopers in the head, which I can't really do with a controller. On the other hand, I really did not like the speeder and flying controls with the mouse and keyboard, especially the speeder was so hard to control. And when you were driving around on a very open planet like Tatooine or Toshara, that was fine. But going around on Akiva with more road-like environments and jungle, I just crashed all the time. So yeah, I would recommend playing with a controller if you are comfortable with that, but a mouse and keyboard still works. So what about the entire open world element? I mean, after all, that's the big selling point of this game, an open world Star Wars game. How does it differ from something like Jedi Survivor or Jedi Fallen Order? Well, quite a lot. I mean, there are 5 main planets you can explore in this game: Tatooine, Toshara, Akiva, Kijimi and Cantonica. And they're a bit different because both Cantonica or Canto Bight and Kijimi City are a bit smaller. There are still areas you can use a speeder, at least I know you can on Kijimi, but they're more like city planets where you just do a lot of quests and stuff in the city, whereas both Toshara, Tatooine and Akiva are really big, and it takes you a while to traverse those planets with your speeder bike. So those are what I would at least argue the huge open world areas of the game, where you just kind of take your speeder around, you find some random missions you can do. Actually, you can do that on the other planets too, but to me at least it's a different feeling when I'm kind of driving around my speeder and suddenly a couple of civilians get ambushed by the Hutts and you have to help them out, or a random ship lands somewhere nearby and you have to figure out what the hell is this ship. Oh, it happened to be like a secret vendor. So those are really the big open world planets, and the other ones are more like city planets, I would say. But I also want to give a quick note that I really have not played many open world games, if any, if I'm gonna be honest. So I won't be able to give you the most accurate comparisons. This is just as big as this Assassin's Creed game or something like that. But I'm just kind of giving it from my perspective as a Star Wars gamer, you know, all the Jedi games, the Battlefront games, Squadrons, whatever it could be. And that's the kind of point of view that I'm coming into this game with. So when it comes to just open world, I think the game really nailed that, because there are so many extra things you can do, whether it is contracts, syndicate missions, events, secret vendors, intel you can find, treasure locations, among a ton of mini games within the game too. There just felt like wherever you went, you wanted to stop and do something. And like I said, that was kind of my main gripe about how I play the game. I just skipped everything, because you see these little markers popping up like question marks. That means something is happening, whether it's a quest, an event, something fun you can do. And I just kind of plowed through that every single time to get through the main story. I did try like one of each, like syndicate quest, contract, event, just to get an idea of how they were, and it really felt like it could be fun to just go around and do those. And that kind of brings me to the next part, the entire syndicate reputation thing. One of my favorite things about this game, to be honest, where you choose which syndicate you want to work with or against. Maybe you want to support 2 of them and go against 2 of them. You will have to go against all of them at some point through the main story, but I kind of decided early in my playthrough, like, I want to support Crimson Dawn, screw the Pikes. Which meant that I could fairly quickly get my reputation fairly high with the Crimson Dawn. I never got it to max though, so that I got the end game gear, and that's simply because I did pretty much no side quests or syndicate quests at all. I just did the main quests, and whenever I could choose between the 2, I chose Crimson Dawn. That I still got my reputation pretty high, indicating that if you just do the side stuff for your particular syndicate, you can get it up pretty quickly. But the Pike Syndicate were really pissed with me, so whenever I were in their territory, or really anywhere nearby, they would just come after me with their speeder bikes and attack me. And obviously the other way around, if I went to the Crimson Dawn, they would welcome me instead. So that entire relationship was something I really enjoyed. And seeing how they all try to kind of undermine each other, and maybe sometimes they even work together, and then having these various rewards to unlock. These ones are like the end game outfits that I really wanted to unlock and show you, but like I said, without all the side missions and syndicate quests, you simply won't reach a high enough reputation level. And I did also hear from one of the developers at the event in LA last month that it should technically be possible to max out all 4 syndicates, but it's gonna be really hard. Like, we're talking completion is hard. Whereas it's more realistic to maybe be high reputation with 2 of them and be hated by the other 2. So choose the ones that you think have the coolest outfits or the best stats. So how about the story and writing then? I honestly really enjoyed the story, and my biggest takeaway that I kind of reacted to was I thought they had a lot of good characters in the game. Everything from droids to also a lot of aliens, which I appreciated. Everything from this small lady called Ankh, I actually don't know what species she is, to Rhodians, to Mon Cala, to this floating head thing. There was just so many new and old aliens that showed up, which I really appreciated, which really made it feel like that Star Wars story you kind of hoped for. And basically, like they've said, the entire story revolves about pulling off one of the biggest heists in the galaxy, and then the build up for that and all the complications you run into trying to set this up. So it is kind of like one large storyline that arcs the entire game, with a lot of side stuff you have to do to pull that off, as well as the millions of side stuff that aren't tied to the main story that you can do too. When it comes to the story, I also really enjoyed the environments that you could explore, because Toshara and Tatooine are more like open plains, one being obviously a desert and the other one being a little bit more lush but still quite barren. And then you have something like Akiva, which is basically like a jungle planet where you can't really traverse with a speeder bike the same way, but you have to go through certain paths, but you can also go out on a big lake with your speeder bike. And then on top of that, you will experience really cool places during the story, such as an old High Republic ship, an old separatist droid factory, and in short, I think they just did a very good job of having diverse locations and some very unique locations that you get to experience. But in general, I thought it was a fun story. I liked it. It definitely had some twists. It definitely had some cameos from characters that you may or may not expect to show up. But I do think it would feel more satisfying if it did more of the side stuff that I didn't do, both for the story reasons, but also for something I wanted to get to next, which is kind of like the unlock and combat system. Because before we talk about how the combat actually feels, there's a lot of things you can do to customize. Obviously, you can get more health, more Bacta slots. And then when it comes to customizing your blaster, there's a lot of things you can do. Not only do you have multiple like attachments to it, so you have a blaster attachment, an ion, an explosive, but then within those three, you can also choose different versions of, do you want a burst, rapid fire, and then upgrade those. And the same thing goes for your ship and your speeder. And you upgrade these both by collecting parts around the world when you're looting, but also by getting extra parts from special vendors or from experts or things like that. But since I only did the bare minimum, it meant I only got the upgrades that you get through the main story, so I was really like underpowered by the end of the game. I could still complete it on the regular difficulty, but I know that, like, especially after seeing the preview event, you could have way higher health and backed account, and I pretty much didn't unlock anything of that except for one extra health bar because I did none of the side stuff. And that also brings me up to another big upgrade thing, which are the experts that they've talked about. There's 9, maybe 10 experts. I'm not sure if this thing in the middle is an expert that you can find and then do missions, quests to unlock new abilities, features, gear. And as you can see, I only found 3 out of the 10. And out of those 3, only one of them did I max out, and that's the first guy. I just really want to emphasize, I did not play the game the way it's intended. I rushed through it. And I am going to have a lot of fun either replaying it completely or just going back on my main save and doing all this stuff afterwards and unlocking it. Because these experts are really the way that you unlock stuff in the game instead of having like a talent tree. I mean, sure, yes, you do have this little, I wouldn't even call it an upgrade tree for your blaster. That's a bit more linear, but in terms of these experts, you go off and find whatever you find is interesting. You want someone who can fix your speeder bike, go for that guy. You want someone who can help you get Nyx upgrades, go and do that. And that's something I completely neglected in my playthrough, but that I really enjoyed. And these expert missions are very different. Some of them will be a straight up quest, like go and collect this object, come back to me, and then you get this upgrade. Others will be more like the classic achievement, where it's like, make Nyx happy in 4 different ways, use Nyx to steal gear, or things like that, which will then, after you've done all of those objectives, unlock a new thing. But while we're talking about the combat, how versatile was it? And I actually quite enjoyed it more this time than I did during the preview event, because I got to actually unlock the stuff and change the way I played. In the beginning you just have a normal blaster bolt, but then you unlock the ion shot, the explosive bolt, and then you have the stun bolt you can use and all the other takedowns and stuff you can do together with Nyx. And I think with all of those combined and the fact that you could change these within each blaster bolt type, it meant that you could kind of adapt the playstyle to how you wanted to play. And then on top of that, you will constantly find these temporary weapons you can pick up in battle, everything from grenade launchers to sniper rifles and normal blaster rifles, to give you like a temporary boost before you then jump back to your customized blaster. I know it's going to be a bit of a divider because some people don't like that you only have one blaster, but I kind of like that you have so many upgrades and things you can change with it that it still feels like you have multiple blasters, and I'd rather have that than have like a million blasters and then you just find your favorite and use it all the time. Now you can always access at least those 3 different blaster types and your stun shot at all times, but then alternate how they actually work. Plus all the temporary pickups you can pick up as well. So overall I did feel the combat was way more satisfying this time, but I have to give a big shout out to Nyx. Nyx is what makes this game a bit more unique, where he will help you in combat, he will help you when you do puzzles, he will do everything from opening hatches, jumping over and finding loot that you can't get to yourself, to distracting enemies or straight up attacking enemies. And you really gotta learn to use Nyx, something that I over time learned more and more, as it gives you such good openers for the combat, whether it's him completely distracting the enemy or, like in this case, grabbing a sniper rifle before I even engage in battle, making it a lot easier to take these enemies out compared to if I were to just attack them with my blaster pistol. And Nyx is a cutie all over the game, whether it's in combat, helping out, or just random interactions, or in the storyline. So Nyx, huge shout out, big win, probably one of my favorite parts of the game. And what about the customization? Something I know a lot of you have asked about. Well, some of the gear you unlock that give you stats that are kind of like permanent unlocks, like this armored undershirt I got right here, which isn't really a cosmetic, but that's what gives you you an extra HP bar by unlocking it from expert. And like I said, I much prefer this than just having a talent tree that randomly gives you more health. But when it comes to the actual gear you can put on, you do have 3 main slots that are visual, which is the belt, chest and legs, and then you have for nicks, and then you have a lot of charms that you over time will unlock more slots for that give you various bonuses for K. But the actual cosmetics that you get, in the beginning it will only be cosmetics, but then after over time you will unlock new gear that actually gives you stats. Both the main story will give you these Outlaws parts that I think they basically wanted to give everyone, but then you can buy it from vendors, you can get it from syndicate rewards, and the good thing is that you can transmog all the gear, so even though you might want the gameplay benefits from one piece, you can change the appearance of it to look like your cosmetic that you've unlocked that doesn't actually have any stats. So that was a big win for me, so that you can actually look exactly the way you want but still get the stats from your best gear. And yes, it is a bit fewer slots than many other games might have, but I felt like I was completely fine with that since the actual gear pieces are pretty significant visually and stat-wise. So instead of having like 10 different slots, you have 3 main ones, plus I guess like, I don't know, 7 or 8 charms that you don't visually see, but that will give you some gameplay benefits. But when it comes to the customization, we obviously can't change Kay, she is her character, and I know some people have complained about that, but honestly, that's the same thing as Cal Kestis, Iden Versio, it's just a canon character. But I do, however, think it's bad that we can't customize like her hairstyle like we could in Jedi Survivor with Cal Kestis. I'm not like 100% sure you can't do it, but considering I've played through the entire main story and still haven't found any place to change my hair, I'm assuming you can't. So that's a bit of a downside to the customization, as that obviously wouldn't change the character, but still give the player some more freedom to how Kay looks. So I've tackled some of the big parts now, but let's talk about what did I not like about this game. Well, first of all, like I mentioned, I wasn't a huge fan of the way mouse and keyboard worked for vehicles. Both the ship and the speed bike felt very clunky and hard to control, and I would almost recommend, if you're playing on PC, to have a controller standby, as that was way better. But when it comes to PC in general, the performance was pretty good. But I have a 2080 Ti, which isn't the newest graphics card, but still not that old. And on some planets like Akiva, which is a very jungle-heavy planet, the FPS would drop down quite a bit. And something I didn't understand was that sometimes I get these extreme FPS drops and stutters for a couple of seconds, and then it would be fine for 30 minutes. So I'm not really sure why that happened. It wasn't ever a consistent lag, but I would get these lag spikes randomly, and I really have no idea why. And the closer to the end of the game I got, I felt like the buggier the game got. Like the last space battle I did, I'm not gonna show it just for spoiler reasons. The audio for like the blasters completely stopped working. Some of the parts of the cutscene was black. And it was just like, it kind of took away some feeling from the ending. Because that was like kind of supposed to be a grand finale, and the actual ending out of a story perspective was good. But having these audio issues and cinematic issues, not good, to be honest. And the weird thing again is that it seemed like it worked better in the beginning of the game and got worse for me at the end. Other things I didn't like was that I think the shooting was good. So whenever it was like a shooting focused mission or shooting focused boss, it was fine. But the movement didn't work very well for certain bosses. And again, I'm gonna try to keep this spoiler free, but let's say it's a big creature hunting you and you kind of have to run around and dodge it. And my god, that was the worst and most annoying boss fight I have ever done. I was so frustrated because it didn't feel like I had to learn a certain mechanic, it just didn't work very well. So I felt like the actual quick movement worked really bad in the game, and therefore it caused issues when there was a boss where you had to dodge. Most cases that wasn't the case. Most of the cases you had to stealth around, play tactically, pull off maneuvers, and that was great. That was smooth and good. But when it came to actually like dodging, running and dodging, did not work very well. I did not like that. And when it comes to the stealthing, I don't know if that's just a me thing, but sometimes it felt like there was a little bit too much stealthing, and it was just really, really annoying when you could have to do the same part like 10 times over because I sucked at it. A lot of times though, you can just kind of blast your way through, and I way prefer that because that's the way I usually play games. But there were certain places where it was just too much stealth. I didn't like it, and I'm curious how the general reaction is gonna be because I haven't played many stealth games, so maybe that's just normal and I'm not good at it. Or if other people are gonna feel the same way, where it's gonna get frustrated, you get caught like 10 times over at the same place. And when it comes to bugs, there was also a lot of graphic bugs in the cutscenes, especially the items. I think it's the items that change based on your visuals, such as your blaster. A lot of times the blaster would just be like floating in random locations during cutscenes, which again takes away a lot from the story. When those kind of bugs happens during the gameplay or a fight, you don't really notice or think about it much, but when it happens in a cutscene you're supposed to just be watching, it's really bad. It just looks bad. It takes away from the feeling of the story. So that's another thing that I thought happened a little bit too much in the game. And lastly, one thing that I think is a bit of a missed opportunity is the entire melee part of the game. Stealth takedowns makes total sense, but for me it is a bit jarring seeing someone basically go up to a fully armored stormtrooper and knocking them out with a slap on their head. It doesn't really make sense. It feels a little bit more normal if you do it on an unarmored enemy, but I think it's such a missed opportunity that it didn't introduce any melee weapons at all. I think you could have like a shock prod later in the game, because I noticed that if you want to take out the Gamorrean guard with a stealth takedown, you need that. So at least that's something, but I think it should have been a more prominent part of the game, and maybe she could have had like a truncheon that Jin had or something similar to that to make the melee feel a bit more realistic and satisfying, and of course add another fun customization element to the game. But now I think I've tackled all the major areas I wanted to talk about, even though I feel like I could probably go on for another 20 minutes without a problem. But here are my final spoiler-free conclusions of what I think of the game and if you should get it. And I know, like always, there's gonna be people going like, oh, Ubisoft pay you to make this review. Like, no. As you can see, I have no problem talking about positive and negative stuff, and those of you who watch my channel for the last 10 years knows that's the case. But in general, I really enjoyed the game. I felt like after I finished my session, I just wanted to hop back in and do all the open world stuff that I missed and that I didn't have time for. The story was fun, the combat is satisfying, and it did live up to what I hoped for. Is it a perfect game? No. Is it rough around the edges? Yes. And my score, if I had to give it one, would probably be like an 8 out of 10 or something like that. But I do genuinely think that anyone who's wants a open world Star Wars game will enjoy this game, and that's kind of my main takeaway from this review. I mean, yes, if you really hate stealthing or if you don't like shooting, it might not be the game for you, to be honest. You need to kind of like all of those parts at least a little bit to get through the game. But I do know there's been a lot of criticism around like the season pass model and locking one mission into the season pass at launch, and that's a discussion for another video. Here I'm basically only talking about the main game, and I personally do think the game is worth buying, but that's also with a disclaimer. You know, all the negative stuff I brought up in the video. If you feel like that doesn't fit for you, the game isn't for you. And I will also recommend checking out some other reviews to see how performance issues and bugs have been across other platforms, and if I had it very easy or if I had it very bad. But in general, I can only tell you about what I thought about the game, and you make up your mind if you think it's worth buying or not. And there are also those good deals with like the Ubisoft Plus or like their subscription service where you can pay for a month, play the game, and then cancel, which means you get the game way cheaper. But that depends on if you like to keep the game permanently or not. But yeah, those were my final thoughts on the game. Tomorrow is actually my 30th birthday, so I probably won't be streaming or making much content the next 1 or 2 days, but I do have more content scheduled for the game, and I want to do some live streams too, so I will see you guys in those. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.
Yes.